Hello students, welcome back to our online classes. Children, in the last session, we have seen the part first of lesson number 6, Town Traders and Craft Persons. Now today, let's continue with the part second. We have seen up till here. Yes, these all points we have discussed in the last session. Now let's begin with the next point. A network of small towns. A network of small towns. From the 18th century, from the 8th century onwards, the subcontinent was dotted with several small towns. In the 8th century, many of the several small towns emerged. These probably emerged from the large villages. Small towns were emerging from the large villages. They usually had a mandapika or mandi of later times to which nearby villagers brought their produce to sell. They had mandapika or mandi of later times, and what happened there? The villagers used to bring their produce to sell in those mandapika. They also had market streets. Market streets were also there, and it was called hut. Hut means what? What to say, a market. Okay, hut means market. Market streets called hut, okay, lined with shops. Besides, there were streets गली रहती थी. गली कौन कौन सी थी? Potters, oil pressers, sugar makers, toddy makers, smiths, stone masons, etc. So everybody were having a small streets, and there all the potters used to sit in that street. All the oil pressers used to sit in that street. Okay, so they were having such type of things. Okay, while some traders lived in the towns, some of them lived in the towns, other travels from town to town. Some of them lived in the towns and they had the shop in towns. Otherwise, others used to travel from town to town selling their products. Many came from far and near to these towns to buy local articles and sell products of distant places like horses, salt, camphor, saffron, betel nut, and spices like pepper. So many of them came from far, and they also used to sell horses in the market. Horses were sold, salts, camphor, saffron, betel nut, and spices like pepper. Now, usually a samanta or in later time a zamindar built a fortified place in or near these towns. Now, usually samanta means who? Samanta means what? A person who is working directly under the king, or a king has given him the authority to govern that particular area. So usually a samanta, or he was also known as, afterwards he was known as zamindar. And what he did, he built a fortified palace in or near these towns. Fortified means what? Equipped with all the arms and artilleries. Okay, he built a fortified palace in or near these towns. They levied taxes on traders. Then what they did, they levied taxes on traders, artisans, and articles of trade, and sometimes donated the right to collect these taxes to the local temples, which had built by themselves or by rich merchants. Now what they did, they levied, they imposed taxes on whom? Traders, artisans, and articles of trade, and sometimes they also donated the right to collect these taxes to whom? They also donated, sometimes they donated that whatever taxes collected from these people will be donated in the temple, or the temple authorities were given a complete right to collect the taxes. Okay, the local temples which were built by themselves, by the rich merchants. These rights were recorded in inscriptions, and they survived to this day. These kind of rights which were given by the zamindar to the temple authorities are inscribed, and even today we can find it. Now, the taxes on markets. The following is a summary for 10th century inscription from Rajasthan. This is the summary from the 10th century inscription from Rajasthan, which lists the dues that were collected by the temple authorities. As an example, where the temple authorities collecting the taxes. Now, there were the taxes on the kinds of, okay, where were we? There were taxes in kinds of, there were taxes imposed on sugar and jaggery, dyes, threads, and cottons, on coconuts, salt, areca nuts, butter, sesame oil, on cloth, various things. Taxes were imposed by the temples. And who gave the temple authorities to take the taxes? The zamindars or the samantas. Besides, there were the taxes on traders, on those who sold metal goods, on distillers, on oil, on cattle fodder, and loads of grains. Some of these taxes were collected in kind while others were collected in the cash. Now, traders big and small. There were many kinds of traders. This included banjaras, the big traders and small traders. Now, there were many kinds of the traders. Now, some of them were banjaras. We will see this in chapter 7. Several traders, especially horse traders, formed associations. Means associations were formed. Means guilds were formed. Association means what? Guilds. Okay. Means gut. With headmen who negotiated on their behalf with warriors who bought horses. There was a headman and who negotiated with the warriors to who sell the horses, and the warriors bought the horses from these associations. Since traders had to pass through many kingdoms and the forests, they usually traveled in caravans and formed guilds to protect their interest. There were several such guilds in South India from 8th century onwards. I have told you there were associations. They came together and they did trading. The most famous being the Manigramam and Nanadisi. This is the famous guilds. These guilds traded extensively both with the peninsula and with South Asia and China. They extensively traded with the peninsula, South Asia and China. There were also communities like Chettiars and Marwari Oswal who went on to become the principal trading group of the country. Even today, the Marwari people are principals in trading group, right? So, at that time also, Chettiars and the Marwari Oswal became the principal trading group of the country. Gujarati traders, including the communities of Hindu Baniyas and Muslim Bohras, traded extensively with the ports of the Red Sea, Persian Gulf, East Africa, Southeast Asia and China. Then what they did, they sold the spices in the ports. They sold the spices in the ports, and from that ports the spices were carried to the other countries. And in exchange, what they brought? They brought gold and ivory from Africa, the spices, the tin, Chinese blue pottery, and silver from Southeast Asia and China. Okay, there was a barter system in play. In place of goods, they used to again replace it with a good only. Okay, the towns on the west coast home to Arab, Persian, Chinese, Jewish and Syrian Christian traders. India's spices and cloth sold in the Red Sea ports were purchased by Italian traders and eventually reached European markets. Now see what happened. Now our Indian producers started going to Europe through the Red Sea ports, and Indian products became very popular over there. What was grown? See, spices grown in tropical climates. Means which spices were there? Pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, dried ginger. This kind of spices became very attractive, means popular in the European countries, and they became a very important part of European cooking. And also, not only this, the cotton cloth which was produced in India was also has also attracted the European traders. This eventually drew European traders to India, and because of this, European people were attracted to the India. And then later on, what happened? Britishers came to India in the source of trade. They just came to India to do trading, and then they ruled all over our country. We will shortly read about this, how this changed the face of trading and towns. Okay, now Kabul, with its rugged mountain landscape. Kabul, rugged means what? Very harsh, means khadbadit. Okay, so with its rugged mountain landscape, Kabul, which is in present day Afghanistan, became politically and commercially important. Wait a moment. Yeah, became politically and commercially important from 6th century onwards. Kabul and Kandahar were linked to the celebrated Silk Route. See, they were linked with Silk Route. Besides, trade in horses were primarily carried out the large on through these routes. In 17th century, Jean Baptiste Tavernier, a diamond merchant, estimated that horse trade at Kabul amounted to rupees 30,000 annually. See, can you imagine 30,000 at that time? Means it's a very huge amount. So 30,000 annually, which was a huge amount at that day. That much trade was done there in Kabul. So camels carried dried fruits, dates, carpets, silks, and even fresh fruits from Kabul to the subcontinent and elsewhere. Slaves were also brought here for the sale. So these kind of things were done in this time. Okay, now crafts in the towns. The craftspersons of Bidar were so famed for their inlay work in copper and silver. Craftspersons of Bidar were very famous for their work in copper and silver, and it came to known as Bidri, as they belong to the Bidar. It came, the craft persons, they belong to the Bidar, so it, the work they did was known as Bidri. Okay, the Panchalas or Vishwakarma community, consisting of goldsmith, bronzesmith, blacksmiths, masons and carpenters, were essential to building of the temples. No, now not only the craftsperson, but the Panchalas or Vishwakarma community, they were consisting goldsmiths, bronzesmiths, blacksmiths, masons and the carpenters. They were very essential because the temple building, construction of temple was very much on a peak at that time. They also played an important role in construction of palaces, big buildings, tanks and reservoirs. Similarly, weavers such as Saliyar and Kaikulars emerged as prosperous communities, making donations to the temples. Such aspect to the cloth making like cotton, cleaning, spinning and dyeing became specialized and independent crafts. And eventually what happened? Cloth making like cotton cleaning, spinning, dyeing, this became a independent craft. So this is an example. See the shawl border which is done there. Okay, a 17th century candle stand, brass with black overlay. See, this is candle stand, beautiful candle stand. So people were specialized in this kind of crafts and craft making, and this was not only used in India but also it was exported, right? Okay. Now, the changing fortunes of the town. Sometimes, like Ahmedabad, Gujarat, went to become a major commercial city, but others, like Thanjavur, shrank in the size and importance over the century. Now, Murshidabad, which is in West Bengal, and on the banks of the Bhagirathi, which rose to a prominence as a center of silk and became the capital of Bengal in 1704, declined in the course of the century as the weavers faced competition from the cheap meal made cloth from England. So Murshidabad people, that is in West Bengal, they were very much famous for the cotton weaving. But afterwards, when the England started cotton mills, they started making what to say factory cloth was made. At that time, what happened, at a very low rate they started selling cotton cloths, and because of this what happened, weavers had to face a competition of this cheap mill made cotton cloth and from England. Okay, now a closer look at Hampi, that is Machilipatnam and Surat. The architectural splendor of Hampi. Hampi is located in the Krishna Tungabhadra basin, which formed the nucleus of Vijayanagara Empire, which is the center. Hampi is located in the center of the Vijayanagara Empire. Krishna Tungabhadra basin, which was founded in 1336. The magnificent ruins of Hampi reveal a well fortified city. No mortar or cementing agent was used. There was no cementing agent used in the construction of the walls of Hampi, but the technique of wedge means what? Wedge means to bind it together. Okay, the wedge was followed, wedge them together by interlocking system was done. No cement was used to build the buildings. Okay, a fortified city we'll learn about. This is how the Portuguese traveler Domingo Pis described Hampi in the 16th century. See, he had come to Hampi. At the entrance of the gate, there were those pass who came from Goa. This king has made within it a very strong city, fortified with walls and towers. These walls were not like those of the other cities, but are made of a very strong masonry, such such as will be found in few other parts, and inside were very beautiful rows of building made from their manor with flat roof. See, he has described the Portuguese traveler when he had come to Hampi, when he had come to India, he had described it how the Hampi was, okay, at that time. So there were towers, the beautiful cities where there beautiful buildings were there inside, and it was very very strong. So the architecture of the Hampi was distinctive. Distinctive means what? It was different and easily recognized. Okay, the architecture of Hampi was distinctive. The buildings is in the royal complex and the splendid arches. The buildings had a royal complex, splendid arches. Splendid means what? Very huge, big. Okay, so bhavya divya arches. Arches म्हणजे kaman. Okay, had splendid arches, domes, and pillared halls with niches for holding sculptures. Niches means what? A suitable corners. So there were having pillared halls, corners for holding sculptures. They also had well planned orchards. Orchards means what? Gardens. Okay, and pleasure gardens with sculptural motifs. Motifs means what? Designs. Designs made such as of lotus, corbels. Okay, so these were there in the heyday. In its heyday, heyday means what? When it was at the time when it was very very popular, when it was at the peak of its popularity. In its heyday, in the 15th 16th century, Hampi bustled with commercial and cultural activities. Muslim merchants, chattis, and agents, European traders such as Portuguese, thronged the markets of the Hampi. Hampi was very busy at that time. Hampi was having a huge market, and not only see, chattis, Muslim merchants, European traders, they used to throng the market. Throng means they used to make a crowd. Throng means a crowd. You people from the other countries, European, Portuguese, all these people came to see and visit and do the trade in Hampi. Okay, so temples were the hub of the cultural activities, means which a main center. They were the hub of the cultural activities. Okay, and Devadasis, that are the temple dancers, performed before the deity. So temples were the hub of the cultural activities, and Devadasis, that are the temple dancers, performed the deity. Royalty and masses in the mainly many pillared hall in the Virupaksha, a form of Shiva temple. Mahanavami festival, known today as a Navratri in the south, was one of the most important festivals celebrated in the Hampi. Archaeologists have found the Mahanavami platform where the king received guests and accepted tribute. I have told you tribute. What is tribute? In the last session we have learned tribute from the subordinate chiefs. From here he also watched dance and music performances as well as the wrestling bouts. Hampi fell into ruin following the defeat of Vijayanagara in 1565 by the Deccani Sultans. How the Hampi fell into ruin म्हणजे त्याचा नाश कधी झाला? हम्पी फेल इन टू ruin following the defeat when Vijayanagara was defeated in 1565 by whom? By the Deccani Sultans, the rulers of Golconda, Bijapur, Ahmednagar, Berar, and Bidar. See, even today we can find the remains of Hampi. Hampi was a very very beautiful city in Vijayanagara. See, now archaeologists have found that Mahanavami platform where the king, there were also the platforms were there where the king received the tributes from his chief, subordinate chiefs, and also he watched the dance, music performances. Means it was overall it was a very beautiful city. So up till here I will finish. Now part third, remaining lesson will make in the part third, because video will become too much big. Okay, I hope you have understood up till here. Thank you for watching. Thank you.